Okay. All right. I think we're happening. That's twice in 2 nights that this thing has gone through the whole normal process and then refused to connect to Facebook. Don't ask me why. I don't know. It's nothing I'm doing. I've been doing the same thing for at least a couple of years now with this particular software. 2 nights in a row, they've changed something in it, and some version of something I have maybe doesn't match properly. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. I appear to be present. I appear to be doing what I set out to do. Was only a minute or two late, so I'll count it a win. And we'll go forward from there. Hello, hi, good to see you. I'm Tad. It is a little bit after 7 on a Sunday night. I am here in, well, we call it Northern California. It's kind of smack dab in the middle of the state, but it kind of that's kind of shows a certain, I don't know, kind of contempt for the rest of the state, the northern part that has lots of people in it but doesn't have any major metropolitan centers. But anyway, that's a gripe for another day. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining me. I will be continuing with Sleeping Late on Judgment Day. If I appear to be doing unusual pauses or hesitations, I'm having some weird drifty thing going on in my right eye. So I may have to wait for a moment to be able to read something. I don't know what it is. It just started happening right after last night's reading. So we'll see what it is and we'll get it dealt with somehow. Or not. Whatever the case, it's not a major thing at this point. Anyway, so what else is there to tell you? Well, as I told last night's reading group, whatever we want to call it, book club, there's not a whole lot to tell right at the moment, mostly because I have sent off Splintered Sun. I am working, but almost entirely in my head with a few variations, but mostly in my head on what's coming next. I am waiting, to do copy editing and stuff like that. So work-wise, it's almost all just me sitting around thinking when I can find a few moments to do that in the midst of the chaos that is daily domestic life with a couple of cats, a couple of dogs, household people, young people in need of various help or solace or whatever. So that's what I'm doing. Not much to talk about really there. And thank goodness not too much to complain about either. The dogs, the Johnny and Lemon experience continues. They are slowly getting used to each other. Slowly, very slowly, but they're used to each other now. There's never a shock or surprise. They don't fight. Johnny occasionally growls at Lemon when she's impinging on his territory. He is very much the old dog, and she is very much the young dog who wants to just get into everything. But they're basically fine. Deb is fine. Our daughter has just come back home again this evening, so we have her company, which is always good. We had our son and his girlfriend over last night, which was also good. I don't even know if I mentioned that last night. I think I did in a sort of oblique way. Because I was talking about why we've never really made a big deal of like our kids' names or pictures or whatever on the internet, which doesn't really, it's not interesting enough to deserve to be repeated again. But it's just basically, they are themselves. They have the right to decide how much they want to be put online and how much they want to contribute to the online world. And we didn't want to do that against their will, especially since, we were doing essentially self-promotion online. We were putting things forward for the sake of our business, our publishing, or all that kind of stuff. And that's the last thing we wanted to do, was get into a thing where we were dragging our kids into our business stuff. I think over the years, Deb did publish some pictures of various members, but it was almost always in some particular point, like wanting to show an outfit or something like that. Anyway, so that's basically it. Not a lot to announce. I already lost a few minutes at the beginning of the broadcast because somebody changed versions on me or did something weird that somehow caused a misunderstanding that wouldn't have happened a few months ago between me and I guess Facebook. I'm not sure. I'll try to figure it out. If it It's going to keep happening. It has to be fixed. And so I'm going to go see who has dropped by, and then I'm going to just read, I think. So since I have time to read, I will read. So let us see what we've got here. All right. So who has dropped in to make comments or leave comments so far? Andre, very nice to see you. Kristen, a pleasure as always, Kristen. Thank you for joining me. Tracy is here. That's Tracy McClatchy. Ray Weatherford. Hello, Ray. Good to see you. Barb Ann. Always nice to have you. Claudia, same thing. El señor Medardo Landón Mazadueñas está aquí, de México. And bienvenido, Medardo, como siempre. Good to see you. Isaac Tim is here. Kelly Kenrick has checked in. Here's a new name, Braulio Valdebenito Maturana. Lovely name. And hello, Braulio. Lovely to see you, and thank you for joining us. Mark Marino is here. Hello, Mark. And Christy Sanders. Hello, hello. Good to see you all. Thank you for joining me. I will try to remember to check back because I think a lot of people... Oh, am I freezing up? Okay, Kristen, let me know if anybody else also probably already let me know if this is happening, if this is freezing. I know Kristen has had issues with my broadcasts before, but let me know if there's anything like it that keeps happening, because maybe it's something to do with why I had a problem earlier tonight. Anyway, so Braulio says, hi, Tad, new fan here. I recently read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and they are the best thing ever. Planning to continue with the new book soon. Really happy to hear about Splintered Sun. Well, thank you extremely very much. It's a great pleasure. I only write books, or I only started out writing books because books were so important to me. There was no thought of, oh, I'm going to get rich doing this. Nobody with a half a brain goes into writing or publishing or book selling or anything to do with books with the idea of getting rich. It does occasionally happen. Some people, it happened to Stephen King, it happened to J.K. Rowling, it's happened to George, but that's in part also because of his TV show. But anyway, but no person that actually knows anything about it goes into publishing or book writing with the idea like, oh, I'm going to get fat. This is not like going into banking or something. Almost everybody that I know who is in the business, and that goes from, people working in bookstores to people working in the publishing companies to, all the way up, and including almost all the writers as well. We got into it because we loved books and we loved storytelling, and these things were important to us, and we wanted to be involved with them. And for me, it even went further, which was that I had a desperate, painful need to find a way to make my way through life while doing something, for lack of a better term, creative. So I was always doing creative stuff. I did art, I did music, I did theater, I did all kinds of stuff. And writing happened to be the thing that I was first able to actually see a possibility of earning a living doing. So this is not to say I do not love what I do. I do. I am so lucky and so happy. But that I was also very, very much set on the idea that whatever I do, I cannot work in a job where I'm not happy. I worked, for the first 13 years out of high school before I was able to become a full-time writer. I worked at a variety of jobs, some good, many dreadful, most of them just not the kind of thing I would have wanted to be doing for more than a short length of time, always with the idea that I don't want to commit to something non-creative until I can see if I can make the creative stuff work. But it was never about money. It was like maybe a little bit about I need to make enough to be able to do the things that most of us want to do, have a home, have a family. And I've been able to do that. And Deborah and I, even when we're having a tough time about something or other that's going on in our world, we always look at each other and say, hey, we've been very lucky. We're doing stuff that we love, and we've been able to do it for decades. And there is no way we're ever going to be caught complaining about that. So that's where I'm at. I'm really glad when people enjoy my work, because I'm not in the business to sell things. I am in the business to make stories and make connections with readers. Thankfully, as I said, I've been able to make a living at it, but it has never been about that. And I would, I went years working at these things on the side while working jobs that I loathed simply because there was a chance that one day I could make a living doing something that I really cared about. So anyway, sorry for the brief Tad commercial, but that just reminded me. So I'm always thrilled when people enjoy my books because that's what I'm doing. I'm writing books. I'm not doing a job, although, as with anything, even the things you love, anything that takes passion and sweat and concentration, there are times when you just you don't feel like you want to do it. And that's okay. That's part of the process of being a professional in any one of these, any field like this. So, what I really want to do is for people to read and enjoy the stories, and it's a way to connect with people that I may never get a chance to meet. And for some reason, that feels to me like a really important thing. It seems to me like that's the most important thing for me about what I do. Anyway, just a quick check back to see if I've missed some more people who have showed up or said hello. Yes, there's Emily. Hello, Emily. Good to see you, my dear. Dustin Alford. Excellent. Hello. I'm so glad you found us, and thank you for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you. Oh, there you are. Hi. Great pleasure to have you. Scott Spielman, you too. Thank you. And there is my old buddy, Ivan Batinich. Ivan Batnick. Hello, buddy. Haven't talked to you in a long time. I'm very glad to see you, albeit virtually, but it's always good to make contact with you in any way, shape, or form. So, with no further ado, I am going to continue. We were just starting a new chapter, and because Bobby had come back to the apartment, and after taking care of various bits of business, he had come back to the Kaz's old hidden, secure, discreet, secret apartment where the Amazons, or Scythians, were whooping it up and partying with Clarence. Clarence, the hopeless angel, because Clarence had solved the problem and had found where Doña Sapanta, who is Bobby's guess for his biggest enemy, the angel Anaita, who seems to have been behind almost everything from the formation of the Third Way to the attempts on Bobby's life by Smiler and sending Walter to hell, from which he has come back with no memory, etc., many other things. Bobby became pretty sure that this was Anaita, one of the angels who is judging him, and Ephor in the heavenly Ephorate, who have been judging him, and who were judging him at the very beginning of this book, because that was a look ahead to something that hasn't happened yet in the story itself. And that's where we are. So that we will continue with Chapter 20 from Sleeping Late on Judgment Day, Lioness. It was a beautiful late fall morning in Northern California. The trees still bright with the previous night's rains, the sky frothy with clouds and shafts of sunshine striking down like God's own searchlights. It wouldn't have been a perfect day to drive in the hills if that had been all we were doing, but it wasn't. I didn't have any music going in the car because I was tight and worried. Also, every time I put anything on, the Amazons begged me to play Lady Gaga instead, and I just wasn't up for that discussion. They had caught a bit of my mood, perhaps because I lectured them for about half an hour before we left Kaz's place. Monica had come through, I had an appointment, and the only thing that would stop me from keeping it would be if I had to pull over along the way and throw up repeatedly. I know, you're wondering why a guy who's been in hell would be sweating something this simple. I can't really explain, but I think it has to do with the literal fear of the highest every angel has. I mean, this wasn't just something I normally wouldn't do. This flew directly in the face of everything heaven had taught me. You don't question your superiors. You certainly don't go to their houses, if I was right about that, which still remained to be seen, and more or less dare them to do something about it. But if I was truly going to commit myself to angelic treason, I needed to see for myself that I had the right suspect. I can't explain it any better than that. When we get there, Helena, you're going to stay with the car. That is not fair. She looked at Oksana with resentment. Why is she pretending the photographer? Because she can't drive. And despite all my careful planning, It's my experience that a good percentage of my work ends in screaming, shots fired, and things catching on fire. If that happens here, I'd prefer not to be hunting for my car keys as I run. Just at that moment, I turned onto Hilltop Drive and continued up at a steeper angle. And you, Oksana, you remember what I told you? Yes, walk in house, don't go far, take pictures. She lifted her digital camera. I know. And don't go too far means stay near me, no more than one room away. Go along with anything I say. Smile and nod. If anyone asks you a question that you don't want to answer, forget your English and speak Ukrainian. I suddenly stopped talking because we had rounded another bend and now I could see the house. It wasn't just on the hilltop, it was the hilltop, surrounded by so many acres that you could have dropped the entirety of downtown San Judas on it and still had room for most of Spanish Town as well. It was really quite beautiful, a combination of Moorish and California Spanish architecture from what I could see, but we were still too far back to make out most of the details. We soon reached the outer fences, impressively nasty things with iron spikes, and the first guardhouse. Two serious-looking private security guys sat inside, and I was pretty sure they were armed. The gate, fortunately, looked like something we could... Oh, hang on just a second. Oh, okay, good. Sorry, I just thought I saw that my volume bar was not moving, but I was wrong. Anyway, where was we? Oops. Let me go back just a second. Sorry. We soon reached the outer fences, impressively nasty things, with iron spikes and the first guardhouse. Two serious-looking private security guys sat inside, and I was pretty sure they were armed. The gate, fortunately, looked like something we could probably ram our way through on the way out if we had to, especially since I'd left my puny little Datsun behind and rented a fairly hefty Chrysler sedan for the day in enemy territory. My name is Richard Bell, I told the unsmiling fellow in the booth. I'm expected. He looked at a screen I couldn't see. Then the two halves of the gate slid apart with only the softest thrum of machinery. Follow the main road all the way to the top, he said. He handed me a ticket from my dashboard and 3 visitor passes, all laminated and almost certainly electronic. The guard there will tell you where to go. More guards. I was very glad I hadn't decided to do my usual and just climbed over the fence to see what happened. I was fretfully aware I had more than my own life in my hands this time. Just remember, I said to the women as we followed the long curving driveway lined with palm trees, this is deadly serious. We know, said Helena. You tell us many times. Yeah, but it's my job to get you out of here safe, and I'd like to do my job right. Helena smiled. It wasn't nervy or innocent or anything except an acknowledgement of a difficult choice made. Do not worry too much for us, Bobby. We have had good training. She was game, that one. The second guard booth was coming into view, this one next to an even larger ironwork gate, set in a no-shit stone wall that looked like it could hold off an artillery barrage. What did Anaita, if it really was her, need with this much security? Maybe this was her idea of normal. If Gustavus was right, she had been a goddess once. Maybe once you've been one of those, it's hard to live down to mortal standards, even if you're trying to pass for human. Then, again, I thought, as we were processed by the second set of guards, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe this is just some extremely rich Persian-American lady who does a lot of work for charity and lives in a fabulous mansion. The inner gate guards had shotguns in the booth, and who knew what else that I couldn't see. I really, really hoped we weren't going to have to crash that gate under fire. The gate opened, and we rolled into a huge semicircular driveway that looped past the facade of the main house, which had to be 30,000 square feet if it was an inch, a tasteful combination of European and Middle Eastern themes. I parked, then left Helena with the car keys, telling her to text me if she saw anything that seemed weird or dangerous. She agreed, but from the sad look she gave me, I might have been asking one child to wait while I took the other in for ice cream and candy. These women were tough, yes, but they were still innocents in some ways, certainly in the ways of heaven versus hell. If I hadn't needed warm bodies, if I had still had Sam, things would have been different. But the first rule of Bobby Dollar Club is things are just what they are. Stop bitching. The second rule is never ask how could things get any worse, because they will. Oh, for buggery's sake. I'm having problems here. Okay, let's get back to that. We were met at the front door by either a butler or a personal secretary. It was hard to tell because he wore a long robe and introduced himself only as Arash. He looked me over with a professional eye. And you are Mr. Bell from Vanity Fair magazine? Miss Sapanta has been looking forward to this meeting. Thanks. This is my assistant. I hope Ms. Roth explained on the phone that this is just a pre-interview. We're going to get a feeling for the place, and then we can set a date for the photographers and do the rest of the interview in email or on the phone. Yes, Vanity Fair. Don't even ask me about all the favors that Monica had to call in to make this lie work for me. You can get people to give interviews who'd never let you across their doorstep otherwise, especially if it's for a big-name publication. Just so. Arash made a funny little bow, then led us down a hallway and across a courtyard where a tiled fountain blipped and splashed, to a high-ceilinged reception room chock-a-block with, I had no doubt, precious Middle Eastern antiquities and some of the most beautiful carpets I'd ever seen in or out of a museum. Please wait while I tell her you're here. He slipped through a tall door into the next room. I looked at Oksana, whose wide eyes suggested she'd never been inside any private building this big in her life. Pictures? I whispered. Remember, anything written down or any photos that look contemporary. She turned to me, confused. New. Any pictures that look new. Arash emerged and graced us with another bow. Miss Sapanta will see you. Wander around a bit, I told Oksana, loud enough for him to hear. I'm sure Mr. Arash will be happy to show you a few likely locations for the shoot. Mr. Arash didn't look all that happy, to be honest, but he nodded and gave me a tight smile. Of course. He showed me through a door and into a greenhouse. That's what it seemed like, at first anyway, even though the roof wasn't glass. An amazing number of plants turned it green on all sides. Plants in pots along the walls, in smaller pots on various surfaces, and even in hanging baskets. Several of them had their own individual misters attached, which made the orchids and other blossoms sway like the heads of colorful snakes. The room was so thick with moisture that I felt like I'd suddenly developed a head cold. The second thing I saw was Doña Sapanta, rising from a teak desk at the far end of the room. Two thoughts struck me simultaneously. The first was, I'm in love. The second was, it's her. Monica had been right. She was beautiful, with long black hair braided into several intricate loops, and yet with most of it still loose and flowing over her shoulders. She was tall, with skin the color of flawless old ivory and the most perfect bone structure I'd ever seen on a mortal body. She might have been 30 or she might have been 50, but it didn't matter. Any room she walked into, she would have been the only woman anyone saw. Luckily for me, I recognized that the immense urge I suddenly felt to throw myself at her feet and apologize for ever having thought of her guilty of a single bad deed was not only a very bad idea, it was not even real. No, it was the glamour of the oldest, most magical sort, the kind that caused mortal men to dance away their lives in a fairy mound or return every year of their lives to a hilltop where they'd once seen beauty running naked on Midsummer's Eve until they finally died, miserable and unfulfilled old men. Miss Sapanta, I said, somehow mustering enough saliva to speak without croaking. So nice of you to see me. My editors are going to be thrilled. Come in, Mr. Bell. The voice was a stunning, throaty alto, but I thought I could also hear the childlike tones of Anaita, the angelic E4 lurking inside it, like tiny pearls wrapped in black velvet. As she walked toward me, I saw her eyes widen just a small, almost unnoticeable fraction. She quickly covered it with a smile so white and perfect I had to fight the urge to fall to my knees all over again. Either she'd just decided I was one sexy dude, or she'd pierced my cover already, from all the way across the room. I've been waiting for you. She took my hand in her warm, dry one. And how did she stay dry in a room that felt like a sauna? She looked me in the eyes long enough to make my hand sweat even more, then let it go. Will you have something to drink? I said yes, hoping that Oksana might be left alone somewhere while Arash, the high priest, or whoever he was, went to fetch it. But Doña Sapanta only returned to her desk and pushed a button on her phone and asked someone to bring in some refreshments. You have an amazing house, I said. My heart was beating so hard I was surprised it wasn't rattling the windows. It was really her sitting there, the one who tried to erase me from existence. We were finally, actually, face to face. Just beautiful. Thank you. She paused as a maid dressed in a tunic over loose pants tiptoed in with a platter and set out ice water and lemonade on a small table near the window, then put down a plate of fruit and went out as silently as she'd come in. Let's sit here where we can see the garden. It is my greatest joy. Her voice was like honey. I'm not talking about the cliché. I'm talking about how hearing her talk really felt like something sweet and golden and warm and sticky was being poured over me. Goddess of fertility, indeed. Just being in the same room with her made me want to fertilize everything in sight. I took a few pieces of melon and half a pomegranate onto a plate to give me something to fiddle with, then forced myself to concentrate when all I really wanted to do was lie down and listen to her. Despite her enormous beauty and supreme self-confidence, I thought I could sense a bit of tension in my hostess. She knew who I was, I felt sure, or at least what I was, which was no more than I had expected would happen, although I had hoped the suspense might last a little longer. So, here we are, she said and laughed. Her laugh was predictably melodious. You must have lots of questions you want to ask me. Please, feel free. Don't be stupid, Bobby, I told myself. She's playing it straight. You have to too. But I couldn't help feeling that maybe what Anaita was playing was me. Oh, we have lots of questions about your fascinating life and your even more fascinating work, Ms. Sapanta, I said. Everybody I've met here in San Judas talks about all the things you've done for the city. But we'll do most of this in the interview, of course. I just like to get a feel for people. See them on their home turf. Well, you are a most thorough young man. She laughed again. She might be a little tense, but I was feeling more and more like I was the one sitting in a cage with a very large, very beautiful lioness who could swallow me whole without crimping a whisker. I admire that. And are you getting a feeling? I'm a bit overwhelmed, to tell the truth. This is all so impressive. She gave a careless flip of her perfectly manicured hand. I need a place where I can get away from the stress. The modern world is a very tiring place, I think. How about you, Mr. Bell? Do you find the modern world a bit much at times? I guess. But it's the only world I've got. She sat back with her glass of water, toyed with a lemon peel floating in the glass. Myself, I long for the old days. You know this is not my native home, yes? I've heard that. Then you can imagine how much more important it is for me to feel safe here in this new home of mine. That is why I have so much security. I am sure you must have noticed the guards. Yes, I did. I do not wish to be paranoid. She smiled again. But a woman in my position, well, there are people against whom I must protect myself. Bad people. Both from my old country and from this new land where privacy is so hard to acquire. Satellites, computer hackers, so many people and magical devices which can pierce secrets, destroy privacy, ruin lives. This was clearly a message, but I wasn't sure how to read it. Still, I was ahead of the game at this point simply because she hadn't called in the guards to rip my head off, or worse, called heaven to let them know she had a rogue angel in her conservatory. Is that a worry for you, Ms. Sapanta? People from your past trying to hurt you? Oh, I have made it sound too dramatic. No, most of the reason I desire privacy is because I wish to avoid the kind of people who prey upon the rich and the successful. Kidnappers, blackmailers. I was beginning to get it. I deliberately went another direction. Kidnappers? Yes, of course. Do you have family, Miss Sapanta? Her lip curled, and the fear came back into my chest. I do not wish to talk about such private things, Mr. Bell, to you or your magazine. Her expression softened. I'm sure you can understand, and we have lots of other things to discuss. She poured herself a little more water, and when she spoke, it was very deliberate. Now, tell me exactly what you need from me. Anaita thought I was blackmailing her. She thought I was here to let her know I was aware of her earthly life, and maybe even to suggest there were other more deadly secrets I knew in hopes that she would pay me off. Or maybe just in hopes that she'd leave me alone. I didn't know whether I wanted her to go on thinking that or not, so I proceeded very carefully. All I want from you, Ms. Zapanta, are a few answers. I know your time is precious, and that you have other places you need to be, and other people to answer to besides a humble journalist like myself. I'd just like to know a few things about what makes you who you are. Is that really what you want? She leaned back a little and looked at me with a calculation I hadn't seen so far. I was stupid if I believed I could outthink her, I realized. This was a being that had been around forever, or as good as, and had survived the loss of her worshippers and her country, only to set herself up all over again as a major player in heaven. She was a survivor, and they were the toughest kind of enemy to deal with because they played the long game and didn't jump to ordinary bait. Why should she blast me to cinders now? She had as much time as she needed, and I had nothing but stubbornness and the occasional streak of dumb luck. Those streaks never lasted very long either. I'm just curious, I said. You've gone to so much trouble to create an entire world for yourself. A beautiful world. I looked around as though I was talking about the huge house and the vast grounds, but we both knew I wasn't. A beautiful world that isn't your old world, but isn't part of your new one either. A kind of between place, I guess you'd say. I let that hang for a moment. Why? I mean, forgive me for being blunt, but you must have invested a great deal in this project. Is it so important to you to have something that is not of either world? Her smile, when it came, was slow and extremely sexy. If I wasn't an angel, or at least if all the non-parts of me, the non-meat parts of me, weren't angelic, I would have instantly had a heart-on or a heart attack or both. You are a very interesting man, Mr. Bell. Are those the kinds of questions you intend to ask in your interview? Nothing more mundane and practical? Others always want to know, how much do you have? What do you own? Material things. But you want answers to difficult questions. That's my nature, Miss Zapanta. I've always been more interested in the why than the how much. Well then, she said, and rose from her chair with a movement so sudden and yet so graceful that it was like watching a great bird take wing. You must think of all such questions that you can, Richard Bell, to prepare yourself for the next stage of our interaction. May I call you Richard? Because we will have our interview. I can tell already that it is fated for us to meet again. She pushed a button on her desk. I'm sorry to cut this short, but I have an important phone call coming. Of course, I said, caught by surprise, but quite ready to get out while the getting was good. I wouldn't want to keep you. But do prepare yourself. The door opened and Arash stepped in, clearly waiting for me. Because I promise you, next time you will have your answers, she said. All of them. And some will surprise even a man like yourself. She nodded to Arash. You may show our guest out. I grabbed Oksana from the reception room and tried to walk like something other than a guy who had almost pissed himself in terror because a beautiful woman had told him they were going to meet again. When we got to the car, I threw myself into the back seat and concentrated on breathing again. It felt like I hadn't really done it for a while. Drive, I said, just drive. Helena shrugged and put the car in gear, and we crept around the long driveway. Oksana started chattering to her friend about the inside of the house, then turned to me. Lots of pictures, Bobby. I took them just like you said. We rolled through the first gate. Beyond the green hills, I could see the bay, far, far below and far away, an entire world away. Did you hear, Bobby? Oksana said. I make lots of picture. Don't talk for a while, I said. Please. And Helena, take it slow on the curves, will you? I don't feel all that great. 21. That's chapter 21. 21, car problems. It was barely past noon when we got back to Kaz's apartment, but I went and lay down on the couch, pulled a pillow over my head to kill the noise of the Amazons watching Judge Judy, then fell into a deep, unpleasant sleep. I was exhausted in mind and body. Just being in Anaita's presence had been like a couple of hours under fire in combat. Plus, the idea of what I'd done was just beginning to settle in. I dreamed of Kaz, but this time I was on a high hilltop looking down, like the view of San Jude I'd had from Doña Sapanta's house. Terrible things being done to the woman I loved were happening far away, which didn't make them any less horrible. It just made me more helpless. I woke up sweating, got myself a real drink, and went out into the courtyard to mull it over. Whatever heat the late November sun had brought to San Judas was already starting to fade by mid-afternoon, but cold doesn't bother me as much as it does ordinary people, and I needed to breathe something other than air conditioning, especially ours, which was getting a bit strained. Helena was a smoker, and she had discovered a couple of cartons that Kaz had left behind in one of the closets. I tried to get her to go outside when possible, but as an ex-smoker myself, I didn't have the heart to send her into cold rain or 50-mile-an-hour winds, so the apartment was beginning to smell a bit. As I sat thinking, I realized my heart still felt like it was beating faster than normal. Confronting Anaita had really rattled me, because now I'd taken a decisive step that couldn't be undone. Once she realized there was no blackmail, it was going to be war. I had basically told her, you want to get me, I want to get you. Gloves off, let's settle this thing like grown-ups. But the difference in power between us made it a bit nearer to a 6-year-old kicking a sumo wrestler in the knee. A sumo with a bad hangover and anger issues. Honestly, I really don't do these things simply because I'm an impatient fool. I mean, that contributes, but my old boss Leo taught me better than that in my Counter-Strike days. There often comes a point when all the clever plans aren't enough to get you what you need. So you have to shake the trees instead and see what falls on you. Sometimes it's a coconut, and instead of starving, you get to eat. Other times, it's a leopard, and, well, at least then you know where the leopards are. They're all over your ass. And I had learned things today, some of them pretty damned important. For one, I now knew that I was right. Anaita was the one behind the third way, and so she was almost certainly guilty of sending Smiler after me, as well as transferring poor Walter to hell. How did I know that? Well, I can promise you that if there hadn't been something fishy going on, the Angel of Moisture wouldn't have spent half an hour exchanging coded double talk and subtle but unmistakable threats. If she had been innocent, the moment she'd recognized me, she would have said, "You're Deloreal. What are you doing here bothering me during my free time?" But she didn't. And in fact, she'd made more than one reference to blackmail. Angels, especially the old ones, don't just say things by accident. By not immediately calling me out, she had as much as admitted she had something to hide. The next thought hit me hard, although it was the reason I was sitting in a pretty apartment garden right then instead of being dragged through the streets of heaven in disgrace. Not only was Anaita admitting she had something to hide, she was afraid of me. Me, or the angelic equivalent of the guy who mopped her floors. She didn't know what I knew or who I'd talked to, didn't know what kind of allies I had, who might be backing my play. In fact, the boldness, yes, some might call it idiocy, of my walking right into her home had worried her badly. Because why would any sane angel dare to anger one of the powers and principalities right in her own house? Just because me was the real reason, of course. And Anaita knew me and my history at least well enough to guess that that might be the case. But she couldn't be certain, which was probably all that was keeping me alive and relatively comfortable in my fleshly shell. Was there some way I could bring in bigger artillery on my side? I couldn't believe all 4 of the other Ephors were in on this with her, Cariel and Terentia and the rest. But I didn't know the territory well enough, didn't know what was going on among my superiors. Heck, I didn't even know if I could trust my own Archangel Temuel, even though he'd helped me several times. I wondered if another talk with Carl Gustavus might be useful. As I sat and watched birds hopping across the cement paving stones looking for seeds, performing their due diligence before winter came for real and fucked everything up for them, I felt a surge of resolve. The only good alternatives for me required me to neutralize Anaita somehow, once and for all, so there was no point in letting the scary magnitude of what I'd gotten into affect me too badly. I had been heading in this direction for most of a year. Yes, I'd shut a door behind me today, but I had already been long past the point when I could have turned around and gone back. One good thing that had come out of the trip to Doña Sapanta's sprawling estate was that I'd seen the Amazons in action, at least the low-level kind, and they were good soldiers. No nonsense, no second-guessing, and they had both done what they were supposed to. That was important, because now that I had officially put Anaita on notice, I could feel trouble coming, like a sailor feels a storm. I had some errands to run, and Oksana was trying to get her new pictures downloaded onto Kaz's computer, so I invited Halina to drive downtown with me. "Where do we go?" she asked as we headed north on Middlefield, past shops and chic restaurants and a few crazy expensive houses, now subdivided into merely expensive apartments. "To get some new phones." But you have a really good phone. Yes, and it's been tapped by so many different people they have to take a number and wait in line to eavesdrop. I'm not going to war with compromised communications. She looked at me, confused. I don't trust my phone anymore, I explained. My bosses gave it to me. I don't trust them either. Excuse me. I don't trust them either. But is your boss not God? Helena asked, intrigued. Supposed to be, but there's quite a few levels of middle management between me and the perfection that is the highest. I shrugged. Who's your boss? Back home, I mean. In Amazon land. She scowled, but not too seriously. It is not called that. But seriously, who runs the place? You said it was some politician. She once was a politician. Now she is only the leader of the Scythians. Valentina Wittenko is her name. A very strong, smart woman. Excuse me. I think I swallowed a bug. A very strong, smart woman. I'll bet. What about you, Helena? How did you get involved with the Scythians? Now it was the redhead's turn to shrug. It's not interesting very much. Tell me anyway, if you don't mind. It's still away to Cubby's place. What is Cubby's place? It's a who, not a what. Cubby Spinks is the lady I get my phones from. Her and her husband. You'll meet them. But I'd still like to hear how you wound up in a mountain camp training to kill Persian goddesses. She made a face. Much more than that. Scythia, it is a way of life, you understand. Like a religion, but a religion of women. Not a god religion. It's about living the right way. The way that women were once living in the old days. I nodded. And how did you find out about it? Was your family involved? Helena snorted. They are useless. I get nothing from them, just watching television, and they tell me not to make trouble. She was struggling with her English a little, as if returned to a younger state. New government comes in, everything's money, money, money. My family just wants some of the money. She paused, choosing her words. Me, I am just ordinary girl. No politics, nothing like that. I have girlfriends, even one or two boyfriends. I drink, I fuck, I smoke hashish. But then I run away one day, and the Scythians, my sisters, take me in. They teach me. Valentina shows me what life it really means. Valentina gives me understanding, gives me reasons. She waved a dismissive hand. Where is my father now? I don't know. Where is my mother? I don't care. I have my family now. I have a family. And Oksana? She is family too. She is like my favorite sister. It didn't sound like that late at night, but I wasn't going to quibble over definitions. We were skating around the edge of downtown, headed toward the apartment towers along the edge of the bay. Not every waterfront building in San Judas is a showpiece, and we were going to one of the non-showpiece types. I hadn't seen any sign we were being followed, so when we got there, I parked in front of the building. We went up to the 6th floor of on the world's slowest elevator. Then I knocked at number 68. Cubby Spinks opened the door. She's about 60 years old and absolutely round, with hair in a military crew cut and a tan like walnut furniture oil. The tan comes from sitting on the balcony all day during the summer, listening to baseball games, although by this time of the year she had faded to a dull teak color. She was wearing her usual outfit, Bermuda shorts and a wife-beater t-shirt. "Bobby D," she said, "come on in." She looked at Helena and raised an eyebrow. "Wow," she said in an extremely loud mock whisper. "So you're dating high schoolers now? He told me that Parmenter kid was just business." Helena looked at her, unsure of whether or not she was being made fun of. Ignore Cubby, I told her. God ran out of senses of humor, so he gave her something else. Cubby's husband, Gershon, appeared, dressed pretty much the same as his wife, except for the addition of an apron, and made his way gracefully through the piles of electronics boxes stacked all over the living room. No easy task, because he was even rounder than Cubby. "Hey, Bobby!" He extended a hand encased in a padded potholder. I shook it. "I'm just doing some satay under the grill. You and your friend want to stay." "Can't. Sorry, Gersh. This is Helena. We need some new phones. 5 or 6, I'd say, just in case some get lost." We spent the next 15 minutes or so waiting while Cubby and Gersh trolled through various crates. At last, Cubby found what they'd been looking for. "Brand new," she said, handing me the box. "Cheap, 'cause all the instructions are in Serbo-Croatian. They fell off a truck in Belgrade, if you know what I mean. They're totally clean, though." We haggled over price for a while in a friendly way, which lasted long enough for the first of Gersh's satay skewers to come out of the oven, the chicken just right, juicy and smelling divine. We had a couple, thanked the Sphinxes, and then headed back downstairs. "They are nice," said Helena. "Remind me of Ukrainians." "I'll tell them you said so. I've known them a while. They're good people, that's for sure. Cubby used to be in the Navy. I think Gersh was some kind of drug dealer back in the 60s. Helena nodded. She wasn't the judging type. I liked that. We had almost reached the expressway when she said, "Oh, I know where this is. The apartment is near. Can you stop there? I want to get something." "Our old apartment building? Tierra Green? I don't think that's a good idea." "It is important. That is the truth, Bobby. Please stop just for 1 minute." That's when I made my one really bad mistake. I was immersed in planning mode, thinking out who should get the phones, where we would go if Kaz's place was compromised, and how I was going to deal with the summons from heaven if I got one. In other words, I was distracted. I guess, I said, but it has to be fast, and I'm not parking anywhere near the place." We stopped 2 blocks away on Hilton Drive, and I let Helena out. I stayed with the car, sat low in the seat, and kept my eyes open. Although it was near the end of the working day and lots of people were on the sidewalks and streets, I didn't see anything that worried me. But when Helena hadn't come back in 15 minutes, I began to feel differently. I left the car locked with the new phones under the seat and walked a casual route through the deepening twilight back toward my old apartment building. I watched the place for several minutes, but although a few people went in and came out, I didn't see anything that looked like serious trouble. Even so, I was holding my gun in my coat pocket and was just about to head in when Helena appeared. She kept looking from side to side as she walked, a worried expression on her face, but she didn't look hurt. I waited until she was out of sight of the building before I crossed the street to join her. "Bobby," she said when she saw me, I saw one man." "Hold on," I said, "not so loud. What man?" "A man I saw before. Black son, the one with yellow hair. He was in the back of the apartment. I mean, downstairs. I saw him from the window." She looked far more worried than I would have expected from a woman who could probably turn most grown men into hamburger in any fair fight. Shit. I was angry with myself, so worked up about Anaita that I had all but forgotten my neo-Nazi friends. I'd made it clear I wasn't going to help them and had probably fucked up their local operation pretty good by calling the police. But even if they just wanted to punish me for that, why were they hanging around an apartment I hadn't visited for a long time? "We shouldn't have come here, damn it. What did you have to get that was so important?" She held up a rumpled brown paper bag, folded into a package the size of a hardcover book. "Letters from my sister." She looked sad but defiant. "I could not leave these. She is the only one from my home I still care about." "Yeah. Well," I didn't really know what to say. I was angrier with myself than with her. "Just hop in and let's get out of here." As we pulled out, I saw something skitter along the sidewalk near the car and disappear into the bushes. It might have been a squirrel or a cat, but I was pretty sure it wasn't either of those things. I cursed, but I decided not to tell Halina. Instead, I concentrated on making sure we weren't followed. It was getting dark and the commute was in full flow, so it took about 20 minutes to escape downtown Jude. I wasn't going near the freeway at that time of day, so I took the bumper-to-bumper route along the Woodside Expressway until I could turn onto Middlefield. South of the expressway, there's a long belt of industrial buildings before you reach the edges of the Atherton district, and I thought we'd be able to get home faster that way. In most circumstances, I'd have been right. The sky to the west had been red when we were on the expressway, but the sun had just dropped behind the hills, and in front of us the horizon had cooled to such a dark blue it was nearly black. The street lights were on, but the sidewalks and buildings seemed largely deserted. It is too dark, Halina said abruptly. This part of town shuts down after 5, I said, but the Amazon had twisted in her seat and was staring into the back of the car. Bobby, she said, something is on the window. I slowed down and looked over my shoulder to see what she was talking about. It took a moment before I realized that the back passenger window on her side had gone black, totally black, although I could see lights all around us through the other windows. The wheel of the car bumped up a curb, and I had to look at where I was going just in time to avoid ramming a soap-scribbled showroom window. I got back onto the road, narrowly avoiding a fire hydrant. Something is coming through the window, she said, her voice shaky, like black snakes. I looked back in time to see something squeezing through the top of the window, something dark and faintly shiny that had made itself almost as flat as paper to slide through the crack between window and door frame. An instant later, the questing tendrils became a streaming, rubbery sheet, ribboning into the back seat like someone was pumping in liquid latex. A tentacle of the dark, rubbery stuff whipped out and grabbed my neck. Another flopped over my eyes. Halina screamed in surprise and kept screaming. I probably would have too, except the blob around my neck was now blocking my mouth as well. Whatever had crawled into the car seemed to have no shape, no bones or limbs, but I felt something sharp biting at my arm. And I couldn't see. Did I mention that? Not good when you're driving. Still, mostly blinded by the thing wrapped around my head, I jerked the wheel to the right and jammed my foot down against the accelerator. The Datsun leaped ahead and hit the curb again, this time so hard I could hear the tire blow out. Then something like a giant fist rocked the entire car. The Datsun was way too old to have airbags, but the jelly-like substance that was currently smothering me kept me from going through the windshield. I think I'm going to stop there since it's already a little after 8. And we've still got a goodly amount more of that chapter before we finish. So I am going to end it there. Where did the piece that fell off? I'll be back in a second. It'll be much easier to end the show if I can get this little piece that fell off and went on the floor. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. Send the cats running in a panic. Okay, so there we go. I'm assuming I was still on the air all the time there. Yes. Okay, very good. All righties. So, thank you so much for joining me. As always, it's a huge pleasure to be able to spend time with you and to know you're out there and that we are all in the same place, at least mentally speaking. And I am, of course, always thrilled to share any of my stories with anybody who wants to hear them, read them, have them read to them, whatever the case may be. So, that's basically it. I don't know of any reason that I'm anticipating that I will not be back next week for the same times, etc., etc. So, that all said, again, a pleasure to be with you. Take good care of yourself. Take very good care of your loved ones, the people around you. Keep an eye out for others who might need something from you as well, just in the way of kindness and peace, of course. Peace, very important stuff. And I will talk to you soon. So, ciao, bambini.